Well, I've just come out now and something quite interesting is happening. I'm on Carre Mallorca again, and I began recording and just commenting on the fact that these two police vans are blocking the street because this is the street where the Delegación del Gobierno, the delegation of the Spanish government, is in Barcelona. And two policemen came and stopped me and asked me for identification and kind of warned me. They were actually very nice about it, because once I explained to them that I was English, I was commenting on the political situation. They were Spanish police. They kind of understood that my intentions are good. Yeah. I'm just a boy whose intentions are good. Please don't let me be misunderstood. That's the way it goes, isn't it? Anyway, it's kind of quite heavy, it makes your heart miss a beat. But they're definitely on the case, and they told me it's okay to film because I'm obviously a nice guy and I'm not violent or going to say anything nasty. But I was reminded by the fact that, technically you can't film policemen's faces and post them online. And they warned me about this, so I will be a little bit more careful in the future. As you can hear, helicopters overhead once again. A night of violence is expected. I'm out here relatively early. I came out about 8:30. It's about 8:45. There's been a big demonstration on Passeig de Gràcia, and we're walking in this direction. And there's more police coming up. I'll explain to them. I might have to explain to them in Spanish my situation, which will be interesting. I'll try and keep filming if I do, because I'm just kind of filming. Yeah, I'm okay really. There's been a big demonstration in Passeig de Gràcia, a peaceful one. And also, kind of interestingly, up in Sarrià, there's been a pro-Spanish demonstration. So once again, the division lines are forming, and I've made no. I think you all know where my sympathies lie, where my friendships are. That doesn't mean I'm against the other side. And I think it's very, very sad and worrying that these divisions are forming. There was somebody commenting on my video this morning who thought I was still virulently pro-independence. And here's the Delegación del Gobierno once again. Still virulently pro-independence, and I said to him, well, no, I'm not, and I'm not for the reasons. I'll state this very clearly. The main threat facing Spain and Europe is the demographics. Having us fighting amongst ourselves is very convenient for the powers that be, because they can slip in our replacements through the back door. That's my view, and I think, there was a big battle in 1205 called Navas of Tolosa, where the King of Aragon, the Crown of Aragon, who was Peter the Catholic, a Catalan, the Count of Barcelona, Pedro the Cruel of Castile, and one of the Sanchos of Navarre, the kind of Basque country, united and went to fight the Muslims. This is what we ought to be doing now, putting aside these inevitable brother war differences, because they're not really that important. The threat that Europe is facing is much greater than this, and so I'm walking towards Passeig de Gràcia. There probably won't, I'm out at this time of night. There probably won't be violence. This will kick off much later. But as I said, there's been a massive demonstration. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people on Passeig de Gràcia, the Jardinets of Gracia, and then in Sarrià, a pro-Spanish counter-demonstration. I think both sides are missing the point, really. Tomorrow there's going to be the so-called general strike. I was in my video earlier on today. I was kind of quite cynical about the possibilities of this strike, because I've in fact back in 1918 I lost a job back in 1989 because I just arrived here and they announced a general strike, and I went on strike, and then my boss sacked me. But I thought a general strike, everybody's got to observe it. I was a good socialist lad, and I thought, well, if it's a general strike, the reason why I don't understand what's going on is principally because I don't really speak Spanish, but it must be important. It's a general strike, and it was a load of crap, really. And this has happened many times since. I'm avoiding filming the police because I don't want to get into trouble again. I'll film the vans. Yeah, I think this general strike, there have been a number of general strikes throughout the independence process. I think this is going to probably be bigger and more effective than many before. In my video this morning I talked about how it's pretty much only the public sector observe it, so all the teachers come out, the hospitals end up with only minimal staff, all the public administration closes down, so you can't get anything done. But this time it's going to be bigger, but the reason for this is fear, because people are very shaken by the violence of the last few days. And I was in the bar earlier and listening to people talk. The bar that I go to isn't opening till midday. Now this is very odd, and I think this is going to be happening. Lots of shops will be closed, lots of bars will be closed, so it will spread through to the private sector, particularly the private sector that's facing the public, because they don't want any trouble. And I think that's the case, really. And here you can see, so Mallorca is completely cut off, and we're getting here to Passeig de Gràcia. It's a little early yet. It's a little too early for anything to be happening. I've not got any thoughts really now. It's very odd being here. It's very odd, this atmosphere, because it's very quiet now, but it's inevitably calm before the storm. This will be the third night of violent protests, and there are going to be violent protests. I suppose another thing I wanted to talk about is I've seen enough photo evidence now today to be reasonably certain that there are infiltrators, there are agents provocateurs. People seem to think it's the Spanish police. I think there might be many other groups involved, but it's pretty clear that it's not. Well, I mean, there are violent groups within Catalanism. Somebody else in one of the pro-independence Facebook groups I belong to talked about the difficulties of the situation. So here you can see remains of burnt stuff from last night that hasn't been sorted out yet. I mean, a lot of stuff had been re-tarmacked. But it's kind of weird wandering around here. Yeah, as I said, calm before a storm. Yeah. This mate was saying. I mean, I think this is the case with many of these kind of demos. There's a level of tension that's so high that a small amount of provocation and a little bit of violence. Yes, the Catalan youth, the hippie Catalan youth will fight, will block roads, will do kind of jazz hands peace actions and get dragged off. And the small elements of them have in the past. I mean, there are radical lefties amongst them, but I don't think they're certainly not typical of the hippie Catalan kids I know. There is Antifa and all that kind of thing here, but it's not quite as organised as. Yeah, I mean, these people with this girl had the scarf over her face. I mean, they're kind of LARPing as Antifa, really, because it's not really as embedded here as it is in other countries. It exists and they provoke things. So there's the police infiltrators, there's far left infiltrators, and I've seen that people have been shipped in the past to cause trouble. So I don't know. I don't really know what to do with this stream, actually. I think I'll probably just walk around for a bit and see what happens. It's a lovely night for it. This is Passage de Gracia once again. This is Passage de Gracia at night. Normally all these bars are, 8:30, yes. 8:30 on a Thursday. You do get the feeling that things will kick off. Let's walk up a little bit further. I've got no particular plans for these things. Just trying to show you the way things are developing. And I'm kind of concerned. You can see this is Gaudi's Casa Milà, better known as La Pedrera, the rock face, one of his last great private buildings before he dedicated himself full time to the Sagrada Familia. You know, this is what I like about Barcelona, and I freely admit, and I might have to admit mistakes again in the future. I really don't know where this is going, but my point of view at the moment is, it's the demographics. It's what I was talking about when I was in Figueres a couple of weeks ago. This place is being invaded. The demographics of Figueres, there are 30% of the population of 48,000. Figueres is the capital of one of the northern comarcas, which is probably best translated as shires, called l'Alt Empordà, which is as emblematic a part of Catalonia as possible. And Figueres, the capital, it was there that I learnt my Catalan, because my first wife was from round there. And sorry about the finger. You can see people playing football. It's all kind of good humoured at the moment. very good humoured at the moment. But I think it's unlikely to stay that way as we move into the night. These people with the estelada on their back. The estelada. Yeah, the estelada is the Catalan flag, which is the four red stripes on a yellow background with a blue star at the top. Okay, and as we're chatting about things, yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I think the Catalans exist is that they've got all the symbology of a nation. So they've got, you know, their foundational myth, and their foundational myth, and it's almost certainly a myth, is that their king, Guifré el Pilós, which translates as Wilfred the Hairy, who was the Count of Barcelona, in 870 or something, 860 or something, no, 874 it must be, was in battle against the Muslims, and yeah, so I mean, this looks quite nice, but there will be elements here that will kick off. Anyway, they were in battle against the Muslims, and he got mortally wounded. And at the time, the Catalans were vassals of the Franks. So alongside him was Carlos Alcalb. I don't know how this is said in French, but in Catalan it's Carlos Alcalb, which means Charles the Bald. So the Catalan king was Wilfred the Hairy, and the Frankish king, the French king, was Charles the Bald. And Wilfred the Hairy was mortally wounded, and this meant that the Catalan troops, they didn't have a country, their king would die, and they didn't have a flag to go into battle, and it was really important to win this battle. So Carlos Alcalb took a golden shield, plunged his fingers into Wilfred the Hairy's wound, and wiped them across the shield. And so the Catalan flag, the La Senyera, which is 4 red stripes on a black background, is known as the 4 fingers of blood. And obviously the Catalans went into battle the next day and won the day. And that's the story, that's the foundational myth. These things are obviously myths. But what's important is that they exist. That's why I think, and it's a different myth from the Castilian myth. So Catalonia is a nation. My argument is whether they ought to be independent or not. And the blue star at the top, if you notice, it looks very much like the Cuban flag, because it was invented in the early 20th century because Spain lost in a war with America, lost Cuba and the Philippines, and the Catalans had lots and lots of investment in Cuba, and they were well pissed off. So the call for independence, I think it was invented in about 1919, that they combined Cuban independence with Catalan identity, and so you got the independence flag, which is called the Estelada. I keep putting my fingers over when I use 2 hands in order not to wobble so much. So there's lots of youth here. I think I'm going to stop this now because I'm not going to stay out here all night. Things will kick off later. I'm pretty certain about that. But yeah, this is what Catalan kids look like. They're all kind of hippie lefties, a bit like we were. They have barbecues in the country and go camping, and they're all kind of fiercely pro-Catalan and in favour of independence, and they'll have sit-ins. But these kids aren't essentially violent, but they can quite easily be co-opted. Once things start to happen, it could get very nasty. Anyway, I'm going to leave you there, leave it here with this image. There's lots and lots of kids here, so should something happen, there's lots of troops, and they're all virulently, that's the wrong word, they're all fiercely pro-Catalan, and because they're young and rebellious, they're anti-police, and they have been whipped up to believe that the police are their enemies, which, if there are police infiltrators amongst them, then possibly they are. But I really hope that things don't kick off. They're going to, though. I'm going to load this up. I might come back a bit later and see what happens. Anyway, talk to you soon.